Beers and Banter, episode 16. Righto, tonight we've got massive episode. We've got all the Titans news. We've got some Origin talk, bit of cricket, bit of Ash Barty, and special guest in the seat tonight, John from My Lure Box. Hit it, Timmy. Righto. John, welcome to the Not So Sweaty Box.
Good to be in here, Matty.
Well, when we first started recording, it was quite warm in here.
Yeah.
But as the cooler months have hit, it is actually quite nice in here on a Monday night.
The budget's gone up, so we put aircon in.
Yeah, that's right. Air conditioning. We left the door open for a bit.
We could actually rent it out in summer for that Bikram yoga.
Yes, we could do that actually.
Only it could be a little bit too hot and humid for them, maybe even, I think.
Yeah, we'll just stoke
And
a
maybe
little fire.
no
yoga's
idea.
not for us
No
either.
idea.
That's a sight no one wants to see.
Wouldn't last long.
Is that nude as well, Bikram, or is that something else?
I don't think so.
No,
Might be
righto.
for you.
That's tantric. I think you're wrong book.
Righto.
Big Red, how are you, mate?
Good.
How was your weekend?
Good. It was like just a flat pack mission. Missy hit IKEA last week, so I spent all weekend on the flat pack on the Allen key, basically
I bet
putting the
so.
furniture together. I did manage to sneak out and watch the mighty Burleigh Bears get up yesterday
ya?
afternoon against South Logan, so it was a good little treat.
They're going all right, Burley, aren't they?
Second on the table. I'm not sure whether that pushes them up, but yeah, they're going good. Still on the ginger beers and banter.
Please. You didn't have a beer at the footy yesterday.
What are you trying to say?
Just heard a report you might have. Dry July lasted 7 days.
I may have slipped yesterday. A couple of old mates did invite me to the footy, and then there was a beer waiting for me. I thought it'd be rude not to drink it. It was already poured.
So what are you doing? Dry half July.
Well, I figure 1 out of 7's better than
Yeah,
7
true.
out of 7
Yeah.
at the moment. So
I can't argue.
I'm back on. You did waver during your month of
Yeah, and
abstainment.
I've made up for it in July. Had about 45 on Saturday at the
Yeah,
races.
That's no good.
Bit dusty yesterday. But
So-
here we go.
Quiet weekend. It was good hangover weather really with the bit average. You wouldn't have got much fishing done on the weekend, John.
No fishing, mate. No fishing. Went north with the family, so keen to get into it now, though. This week's looking good.
Oh, really?
It is, yep.
Might have to get the boat in the water.
No wind. Swell's going down. Boys will be out there. Keen.
We haven't. Well, the swell's been up. It's been windy
Yeah.
and cold, so it's not been good fishing weather for a while. But
No, I'm hanging. Best of intentions, though.
that's
Well
good.
done, Matty. You got me in at the right time, mate.
Perfect.
Big week coming up, Origin.
Origin. We've got John can give us some insights too into his day job. So a bit of player development too. We've got a lot of young Titans that are come from this rugby league nursery. So you might be able to give us some insights into that.
Yeah, so I work down at Palm Beach Crumman High School. I'm involved in the soccer program, but I get to rub shoulders with the boys that head up the footy program, rugby league and AFL, and mate, they've been churning out players for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the boys that I sit with, I talk to all the time about these players that are coming through. There's a couple that have moved into the Titans just in the last couple of years, and there's a couple that have, I know, in the last month or so, have just signed those younger age contracts where they develop those players. But it's a great machine, and I think probably the best thing about it is the culture means around those players and the coaching staff and the school. They just continue to produce young players, and it's good to see them getting into the Titans. It's good.
So do you share the same sports science and the same workouts?
Yeah,
Obviously
yeah.
two different games, but the same fitness regimes as those boys.
Yeah, there's a athlete development program that they run at the school, which the rugby league boys have sort of nutted it out, and they've moved it across all the sports. There's like 18 sports there that they run, but yeah, we all share the same gym and the same sort of functional movement programs, physios, nutritionists, psychologists for the kids.
That's
it's pretty
huge.
dialed. Yeah, it's good.
So that's why I never made it, Dylan, because while the boys at Palm Beach
The
Crumman
psychologist part.
while the boys were at Palm Beach Crumman in the gym and nutritionists and playing footy, five lessons a week.
Yeah, like
I was in chemistry, and then I'd do my 2 obligatory sessions a week at the local club, and that was it. I wondered why I never got ahead.
Yeah, so you talk about the nursery, so it's obviously Palm Beach and Keebra, obviously been the two
Yeah.
dominant sides for a long time.
Yeah.
These guys that come, or the footballers that come to the school, do they have? I mean, it's obviously different just a normal kid going to school. They obviously do their schoolwork, but then they've got the football program set up for them.
Yeah, they're in there from early morning, like before the teachers, they're in there in the gym. They thrash themselves. They're pretty tired during the day for the most part when the season's kicking on.
Do you ever get the maths teachers whinging about that or what?
And then, not particularly. The kids are good, man.
Yeah.
Which is, when I first got to the school, I was intimidated by some of the giants getting around the school.
Yeah.
But they're there. They're pretty focused. They're good kids. It's a good culture, and I've sort of put kids in with them to sharpen them up a bit. If they're playing up, I'll sit them beside these big kids that are quite intimidating.
Yeah,
but
that's good.
yeah, mate. There's a couple in the young Origins, like the pre-Origin game. I think it was the 20s.
Yep.
There was a couple in there that did pretty well, and there's a couple just fielded. One yesterday for the Bronx. Tommy Dearden's out at the moment with the Bronx, but yeah, there's a few kicking around that I thought you boys had enjoyed talking about.
Was
it is
was
good.
Dearden there when you were teaching?
Yeah, mate, first class
a
kid.
couple of years ago. Yeah,
Yeah, big raps.
And was he a standout at school footy? Obviously,
Yeah,
he played for Australia and
Yeah,
had a
yeah.
pretty good junior career. So
Yeah.
What about the young fella? Is it Tanner Boyd? Where did he come through? Was he a Palm Beach kid or not?
Not sure about Tanner.
No. Just come back from the Broncos, signed with the Titans.
yeah, for next year.
But yeah, no, it's a treat to be rubbing shoulders with some of these kids and see the way that they do it. The same as me, mate. He did.
Does the school have? I mean, they obviously go and target guys to come to the school and play football for them. They have scouts. Or?
Yeah, it's mainly the teachers,
Yeah.
and they're the coaches as well. But they grab a couple of kids that are looking to try and take it a little bit more serious. But there's kids that come right through from the beginning as well.
Yeah.
It's probably shared, to be fair.
I think most kids that grow up and
They want to get
on the
there.
Gold Coast and they're really serious about their league, they end up at Palm Beach.
Yeah, it's got me watching way more footy though.
Yeah.
You see your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I
That's
used to
good.
give detentions to.
So do they get any special treatment? So the big fella over here went to college in the US and basically told me that he passed classes that he didn't attend. So is it anything like that at Palm Beach?
Of course it is.
You want to say no, but I don't know. When I teach them, I tend to try and help them out where you can. You help just support them through a little bit because they got such big commitments, man.
Yeah.
They're just some of them are like just pouring the food in, especially the big boys that are the front rowers.
Yeah.
The amount of food they get through in a day, every time I see them, they're just eating or in the gym. So they're machines from that young age.
It's probably the closest thing that we've got to like when you watch we watch a lot of American movies and there's always the high school kids playing sport or the college kids playing sport. PBC and those couple of schools are probably the closest thing to that, where the kids are really trying to juggle that sport versus education.
Yeah.
Most kids grow up in a school where it's not really a big deal.
Yeah, you're right. They're really lucky, but when you see them on the park at 16, 17, you can see that talent. It's pretty exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, they're doing quite well. They're continuing to produce these players, but it's that they've got a great team culture, team mentality, and it crosses over into the other sports. There's some good young surfers that have come out of there. Yeah,
of course.
Recent years. So it's good.
That's good.
It's good, boys. What else has been happening?
Well, Titans got the win on the weekend. That was good.
Got the 2 points.
We got the 2 points. We had
that's
the
a
bye on
bye.
the weekend. But
Up
bit
against
happening.
Panthers this week.
I've seen.
Penrith.
I'd normally try and keep an eye on the headlines on a Monday, but
You've given
I've been trapped in the auditorium at work, so I've seen nothing today. But I'm hoping there's still a Queensland team ready to run out on Wednesday night. We've had a couple of dramas there.
Well, Gillette's still under a cloud.
But
I think
Morgan cleared now or not?
Morgan's okay.
Yeah.
They've given Gillette until Tuesday. So I think Ethan Lowe's on standby.
That's
for
coming
him.
fine.
Mm.
And AJ Brimson was another.
Brimson's gone into camp with him.
he had a good
I
weekend.
don't think no intention to play, but they just brought him in as obviously a future Origin player.
I'm still worried we've got half a dozen halfbacks in the team. You'd never would have seen that when Alfie played. They never would have carried a spare halfback, let alone 2 or 3 in the one team. So I'm just worried we're up against a big, fast, strong New South Wales team.
Yeah, I
But
mean, it'll be interesting to see if Morgan does start in the halves. They're saying he will. Munster to go fullback.
I did call Munster moving from 5'8" about 5 or 6 weeks ago and got ridiculed. So I'll claim that one.
You got one right. Well done.
He used to play. Did he used to play there? They said he used to play there
I
years
used to
ago.
played fullback, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've got obviously Hunt at hooker alongside his team.
Yeah,
half, so
I don't mind that
that's
so
probably no bad
much.
thing.
I don't mind that so much. It's just you've got half at dummy half, you've got your two halves, then you've got a half playing centre, half playing fullback, and then carrying a half on the bench. I'm happy that we've got that. We're trying to fit our best side into the team, but I think when you've got that many halves filling positions in the team, you could probably just play 4 forwards, and if one of the main guys goes down, well, then you shuffle it around a bit. But I just think the big bodies that we're going to be up against, I'd rather carry 4 forwards.
Yeah, I still think the forward packs where New South Wales have got the big advantage.
Big task for Christian Welch to prove himself on the big stage.
First game, yeah. So
who's taking Napper's spot?
Welch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Starting spot. Who was that? Did Welch go straight in?
I think Welch has
He's
been
straight in?
named on the
Yeah,
on the
righto.
starting side. So
Had a shocker there. Don't ask us questions.
No, I was excited because I usually talk to the boys about it but it's school holidays now, mate.
Oh,
so I've
no.
been out of the loop. So this is my chance.
Yeah, righto.
Yeah.
That's gold. Yeah, righto. Any other final thoughts on Origin before we move on?
no, I think we're up against it. I like to think we're a big chance, but I can't see us beating them.
Before we move on, I've got an
You be
anonymous.
happy with that, Timmy?
I've got an anonymous tipster as setting a $20 bet for us to play with on Wednesday night. So we'll roll that, and maybe I think Jaffers Junior's coming in later in the week.
Yeah, Junior will be in later in the week. Yeah.
We'll put something online. He's requested more time to work on his bets closer to the weekend, so that he's getting
Maybe a bit of study would be handy from
wouldn't
Junior.
hurt.
Instead of just throwing the dart at the dartboard.
Just for the record, he was 1 from 5 on the weekend.
Yeah, you've told me that a couple of times.
Sorry, Junior.
Just before we leave NRL, obviously Cam Smith plays his 400th game this week. That's just unbelievable.
Freak, the accountant.
And he's now talking about, he's obviously contracted 2020. He's talking about going on after that.
Well, wouldn't you?
Well, he says he's feeling fresh and the body's good, the mind's good. So, I mean, we could see him play full 50 plus by the time he's done. It's unbelievable.
The only one that gets overshadowed a little bit there is James Graham. He's actually got more first grade games, but because a big chunk of his were in the Super League, he doesn't get the same credit. But he's right up there as well for games played.
Well,
So
I mean, you see now, even 300 these days is a good achievement. 400 and all at the same, one club.
is that something you drum into the kids? Because this is the far end of the spectrum. What is the average? It's like in 40 games or something is the average NRL career. It's all 20. Like, it's not a lot. There's
Yeah, I think. Well, I know AFL's only around the 23, 24 mark.
Yeah. It's a pretty short career when you look at it.
A lot of guys only play a handful, if that.
So out of the kids that are superstars at school,
Yep.
well,
You gotta have something to back you up.
I played with one of the early Palm Beach Crumbin,
Oh, yeah.
Benny Hannett. He was a
Yep.
Palm Beach boy,
Yep.
and he was one out of 30 or 40 kids at that time that were classed as special, probably. So
Yeah. He had a good solid career, good long
you talk
career
about
too.
you talk about food. That bloke used to put some food away. Tell you what. And that's something coming from
you
me.
can keep up.
Yeah, righto. What about the cricket? Was that the loss we had to have, or what?
Well, everyone's saying you've got to play England. You've got to play England. It makes the road hard, but ultimately you've got to beat them. Whether it's the semi-final or the final, we've got to beat them to win the World Cup anyway.
Yeah.
You might be right. It might have been a good loss to go back and regroup for
That was what
4 days.
A mate of mine said that to me this morning. He said maybe that was just the wake up they needed. They've been travelling pretty good. Yeah, I think the concern is that the bowlers have been hurting their batsmen in the nets. So we've got a broken arm, a broken finger, and another bloke off for scans out of a net session.
Yeah, and obviously Quaj is now gone for the rest of the tournament.
What did he do?
He's done his hamstring, so
Hartledge.
they're saying. Well, I think Matty Wade will probably come into the side. They've got him over
Because they've got Australia A just lurking in the background.
Yeah, they've got
I didn't
Wade.
realise you could rotate so many players out of a World Cup squad. I thought you went into a World Cup with a set squad and had to pick from that.
Yeah, I don't know what the
Seem to be able to just pull
what the
them in
rules
from
are,
everywhere.
but the thing that concerns me is obviously Dave Warner's had a phenomenal tournament, and what happens if he doesn't make runs in the semi-final? It's we've relied on it. He's made 300 or 400s.
Finch. You need Finch and Smith to go hard.
Yeah,
this
Smith's
week.
probably due to make some runs.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be interesting. You got to beat them at some point, so we may as well beat them semis and probably play India in the final.
The Poms could have been foxing too. Like they've just been working into a big win. I'm sure.
Yeah, well, they've probably found some form at the right time of the tournament. So
Yeah. Just before we get into some fishing stuff, what about the disrespect for Ash Barty? She's a favourite of the show here and world number one.
Grandma wouldn't be happy.
Can't get onto court one and can't get on the coverage over the other pair of wankers that played tennis for Australia. What has she got to do to get some respect?
She can't go much higher in the rankings, can she?
I think it's atrocious.
Yeah, I mean, you see this curiosity. He's been doing it for so long now. You actually wonder whether a lot of it's put on.
So he got stung in his press conference.
He's obviously a dick, but is he now just playing up
He's
to
playing it to
Yeah,
stay in the media.
Yeah.
He got caught out by one of the journos after he lost to Nadal. She said, said something.
She saw him in
She
the pub.
basically she was in the pub with him the night
Yeah.
before at 11 o'clock, and he comes out a couple of hours later to play Nadal. Please, he's just travelling the world having a laugh.
I mean, the sad thing there, and if he actually got switched on, he actually could do. And even Nadal said he could potentially be a Grand Slam winner
Freak, yeah,
if he got it. If he got his head
Yeah,
together.
he's freakish.
it's annoying.
It's just
Yep.
just a shame he's Australian and he's a dick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But-
Barty needs more airtime.
I think she deserves.
We all want to see her.
Yeah, that's right.
doing well.
I think tonight she's up early tonight, so
Yeah, righto.
when
Get amongst
when
it.
we get out of the sweaty box, we can go and watch her play.
We'll be here late. Let's
You
get
will
in,
be.
let's get into the real talk, but what we all want to hear, fishing talk.
Yeah.
My lure box fame, John, massive amount of followers online. You've nailed the art of the fishing video, and the people are saying like ET, Johnny from My Lure Box. Same
I think
category.
it
Not-
goes
not
Johnny
quite.
then ET.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Not well. It's been a slow process, but it's a
Rexy
lot
Hunt.
of fun.
No, who? Rex who?
Rex, he's gone. You have actually managed to snag one of the best fishermen on the East Coast.
I think so.
And you've brought John in as well.
Oh,
So there's the two of us
Timmy.
now.
Good.
Timmy.
There is the two of us.
Lining that up for the
Welcome
week.
back. Welcome back.
No, this
That
is
is
this
exciting.
good, mate. It's good to be in.
So I remember you as a kid.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, we went to the same primary school.
Yeah.
But just an all-round sportsman. So soccer, basketball, whatever it was, you could do it.
Yeah, we did a lot.
First,
Good.
I didn't know about the bicycle kick before I saw you do it, and then I saw Pele do it in a movie. So, you did it first, as far as I was
Oh,
concerned.
very good. Very good.
Where did the obsession with fishing come from, though?
I think it was we moved up here. I lived at Salvage Point, which is just down the road.
Yeah.
And so all the canals there, I used to fish on the way to school, walk across the bridge to Miami Primary,
Yeah,
and just look down and be like, man, I've got to get into
get a
some of
trevally
that.
out of the water there.
Yeah, Bream, Trevally, Flathead. We used to clean up down there. So it was we were just in really ripe country for good fishing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it just sort of used to offset all the sport and just living right on the right spots. You get into it and you start to froth it, and yeah, we're pretty lucky here with all the canals everywhere. So it's there's a lot of fishermen on the coast, and that's what kicked it off. And then I started getting into lure fishing and started reviewing lures.
Yeah.
And that's when social media came around at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's just been a lot of fun since then, mate.
I think I was spoiled as a kid. Dad took us up the beach a lot, so we're at Fraser Island. We're at Noosa North Shore every second weekend.
Yeah.
So it was basically cast, pull a fish in, cast, pull fish in, and then I moved to the Gold Coast and just thought there was no fish down there. But it's probably more that I was just a shit fisherman. But we're blessed with all the waterways that are around. But that I did a lot of beach fishing, but now sort of only really getting into the canals and into the rivers and
How's that working out for you, Matty?
Oh, do you want me to show the photos?
I think he gave us the
Do you want to
stats.
pass us that trophy there?
No,
No.
Show John the trophy.
Don't worry about the trophy.
What is that?
What were the stats? You gave us some stats that your fishing record with lure fishing. How many have you caught so far on lures? You did throw some numbers around before the
Full disclosure, did you say?
Righto. I'll be honest.
Pass
I've
that trophy up.
I've never
Pass the
caught a
trophy up.
fish using a lure or a plastic. I'm more of a bait man myself.
Did you make this up yourself, this up? No.
Mate, you can have a look. So that's
Borrowed it
that
off
is
the neighbours.
That's a coveted trophy in my family.
Oh, wow. Yeah, righto.
So that's the Noel Snell Memorial Annual Easter Fishing Classic.
Yeah.
We try to go for the longest possible name.
Chris has got it. Oh, there's a spot for 2019.
Yeah,
so that's where
me.
your name's going to go.
That's me. So I'm on
Okay.
there a couple of times. You might
Just
know
him and
that.
his son were the only two in it this year.
Stop it.
His son's,
rained out.
his son's two.
It was a 40. It was a 47 centimetre flathead. I'll have you know. I
Mate,
wanna
that
try
is.
and-
I've seen some of the lizards that John's pulled in. And
So,
I
mate-
think they would eat them for bait.
So what I want to know is I caught a pretty solid flathead, and
Yep.
people can check out our Instagram page for the pictures. But it looked tiny. It looked like a pillies. Like you've
It's
obviously
how you hold it up.
you've
with the
mastered
camera,
the
bro.
art how to
Yeah.
show that.
Yeah.
You-
Hold it forward, make it look big, hide your arms
You
and hands.
basically get a GI Joe and put the fish in its arms, and then
Yeah.
take a picture.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the
just
biggest
fill
flatty you've
frame.
got?
Just under a metre.
Just
I
under
got
a
him
metre.
last year. But there's a few of them around here, and I heard the same thing as a kid. The Gold Coast is fished out,
Yeah,
and I used to
that's
sort
what I
of
always thought.
believe it a little bit and wonder what was going on. But it's not really the case. Once you start to get a few tricks up
You
your
caught that
sleeve,
flatty locally somewhere?
yeah, right. Like that DVD that I've put together, I filmed that it was 14 sessions, and there's probably a dozen fish over, near the metre mark, 80 centimetres to a metre mark. There's plenty of good fish around here, and it's not just flathead. There's a whole host of fish. We're pretty lucky. Like you can go out and get. There's only a couple of places around the world you can go out offshore and catch marlin, and then go all the way into a tiny little creek and catch a little bass up in a stream somewhere small. And we've got everything in between, like big jewfish. We've got mangrove jack, big flathead. There's good fishing
Right.
everywhere.
It is good. And then, you jump in a car. We were just talking before, I do a bit of cod fishing, and
Yeah.
you jump in a car and, a couple of hours drive, you're fishing for cod and things like
Yeah.
that. It's a brilliant spot.
Yeah, you live on the Gold Coast, there's accessibility everywhere for boats, kayaks, or land-based, just walking with a backpack and some lures and that. And
What do you think when we didn't really talk about this before the show? But what do you think when they start talking about things like cruise ship terminals and that sort of stuff up the Broadwater?
yeah, I sort of, I don't necessarily like the idea of just completely turning the Broadwater into a big facility like that. But
Yeah.
as a fisherman, I'm just rubbing my hands together, mate. All of the built stuff on the Gold Coast, the hundreds of k's of like rock bars and canal systems are just like $billion nurseries for mangrove jack, bream, and good fishing.
That's
So,
that is a perspective I've never heard in that argument before. So that's I'm a bit like you. I've got a foot in either camp. Of, my job survives on construction. So and I'm not naive. The Gold Coast, there's two jobs on the Gold Coast. You're either a tradie or you're in tourism. So to me, it's a no-brainer. We need some sort of cruise ship revenue coming in here, and we also need development and construction to keep the tradies busy. But when I'm heading up north on the Broadwater in the boat, there's an element of that I don't ever want it ruined. So I don't know. Maybe they can have that bit, but as soon as you get north of wave break, that they leave it. But it's a hard battle.
And that's some of the best flatty grounds too up there.
Right there,
right there, just north of wave breaks. Good.
Yeah, righto.
We can get into that. So, mate, there's a whole host of stuff that you can do on the Gold Coast, and I thought, we'll share a bit of that with you, and maybe you'll end up getting onto
Yeah,
something.
give us a.
Yeah, I can see that one. I've been eyeing that.
Oh,
off.
you're
Talk
looking
to us.
at this. All right, so
Is that a brim lure or a?
so there's just to give you an idea around this. I've been doing these reviews for about 6 years now, and the lure industry, the design of these little things that you can use to catch fish, is just it's taken off. It sort of became mainstream in fishing in the last 5 or 6 years, and now it's really kicking on. And there's Australian lure designers that are matching it with the rest of the world now, I reckon. And there's some really ugly things like this thing, but that's for catching a Murray cod, and it looks like a rat.
Yeah.
Can you see that? You can see it. Yeah. So a big long tail and super catchy big hooks and that fur that makes it look really realistic in the water.
I'm not sure I want to eat anything that eats that.
Yeah, like it's they grow massive, mate.
You wouldn't catch it anyway.
They're huge.
True.
Yeah.
They're huge. I've seen them take big. I was talking about. I got a similar one that with broken back, and I had a friend of mine that was throwing it across a river. And this thing's like throwing half a house brick. And you start, especially overnight, you start dragging them across some of these creeks out west, and next thing you just get these big bush, and it starts peeling line off. So you'd be surprised how big they those cod will just. They got that massive mouth, similar to I suppose like a bass, but in a much bigger fish, and they just engulf anything.
That kind of fishing suits that adventurous side of people too. Like get out in the outback or get out into some creeks, nature, and go and
Off the
chase
grid.
these
You definitely
things.
don't come across many people out there.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. You don't have
Sounds
to
like
go
a
too
lot of
far.
walking.
There's a lot of walking, which is definitely not one of my strong points. I did a 3day 60k hike through the bush in a certain creek last year, which was huge, considering with a 20 kilo pack, because you're obviously taking in your bedding, food, and I hadn't even hiked 500 meters with a pack on.
What
then
time
I
of
did
year?
60.
Because it gets real hot out there during the summer. Were you out there during the cold?
It wasn't
It's like
super
extremes.
hot. I'm just trying to remember. I think it was maybe September last year.
Okay, that's a good time. of year to
September,
do it.
yeah. So it was sort of before the summer heats, but it's just hard work.
Yeah.
I mean, you're crossing the creeks. Like there was no trail. We just went through the bush.
Yep.
But a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
A lot of hard work. Yeah.
So there's just coming back to these, right? There's Australian lure designers at the moment that are this bloke who designed this, Matt. He's going over to ICAST, which is like probably the world's most prestigious fishing tackle trade show. He's there this week. He's just released something like this that's matching it with the best in the world. He's from just up the road. He's from Springwood, and Matty, I reckon this little thing might be the number for you, mate. Down the line, this bloke hails all the way from Eleonora, and
Made here on the coast.
yeah, Mick Molnar, he's designed it, and it's a little prawn that I think is one of those special lures that are very easy to fish, and you can catch a whole host of fish pretty regularly with a lot of ease for the most part compared to a lot of other lures.
Well,
So
the brim out the back
the
do
brim
love,
out the back
do
will
love
go
a
on that.
prawn.
Yep. So
Most of the fish I get, I think, are suicidal. That's why I use bait. I just throw it out there, leave it, and then something eventually comes along and just has had enough and then take the bait. But
And very unlucky if you catch it.
so
righto. No,
it's an
cool. That's a
interesting
cool
time
little
in the
one.
industry. Yeah.
So what's the most common mistake guys make when they're fishing plastics and lures? That's what I need to know. What am I doing wrong?
For the most part, I reckon they just go out, stand on the bank, and throw it out into the middle and bring it straight back. And it's very simple to do that, and that's kind of what you think, maybe to throw it out into the centre of a system if you're land based. But whereas a lot of the time, if you go about your business and throw it along the edges of a bank first, and then or go and throw it around a pontoon or along some rocks instead of walking down, standing right on the edge of the water, spooking all the fish that live along that edge.
Yeah.
It's like a ripple effect. You walk in, you spook those fish, they go out, and it alerts everything else that you're around.
People don't believe it, but you can walk up to a patch of fish and literally watch them scatter as the closer you get to the water.
Yeah, and that adds a flow-on effect. So I think if you sort of stand back, this is if you're on foot, if you're down the backyard,
Yep.
go down the back and throw around along the edges early morning, and you're a much better shot instead of throwing straight in the middle.
So that's what I'm doing wrong. I throw out into the middle, and all the blokes in boats come past and cast it at the edge.
Those kayakers.
Yeah, the kayakers.
First thing in the morning. But yeah, it's probably that'd be it, mate. Yeah.
What's your common mode of is it kayak or little tinny, or what do you normally go out in?
I've got a kayak, and I cheat a little bit because it's got an electric motor that I jam down through the centre of it, and for chasing flathead over the sand flats on the coast, that's probably the best, stealthiest little machine to do it with, I reckon. But with a tinny, I've got a tinny I'll take around a lot as well. That small sort of crabbing sized tinny is just wicked for fishing the Gold Coast. All the canals, it's very nimble, and you can get up into the shallows.
It's perfect,
and do some
isn't it? You
damage.
don't need a big boat to catch these sort of big
really
lizards
don't.
and jacks and
We crossed paths just after the end of school, and I remember at that time you never saw your truck without a canoe on the roof. It just went everywhere.
That's right, man. Never took it off. Just used to fish with it at any chance I got, and that was a big part of the obsession when you leave high school before you get a proper job, and you're just kicking around the fishing holes, working it all out.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's good fun.
What about fishing trips? You done any cool fishing trips?
We sort of go. I want to do a bit more of what you're doing, man. Like trekking out in that high country.
I'll give you we'll do a trade off. We'll do some trips out west.
The Granite Belt,
and I'd love to do some jack fishing is something I've never kind of got a handle, mainly because in northern New South Wales the rivers, I don't know how well they produce jacks, but
the jack fishing. You can catch jacks from basically like Coffs Harbour all the way up to around to Broome, pretty much whatever, Western Australia. But the jacks that we've got on the Gold Coast are by far the biggest, and we're like I was saying, we're super lucky. A lot of people don't realise, but if you live on a canal and you go and stand, like I was saying, stand on your pontoon, you got a pontoon, you throw out into the middle, the jacks are like living under your pontoon. So I see guys sort of set their lines out. All you got to do is drop it down and leave it. And there's some big badass, like they're gonna wreck you if you're not ready. Jacks, like they'll rip a rod holder to pieces. And
wow.
yeah, they're an aggressive fish. It's probably pound for pound one of the best in the world, no question about it. They're ferocious. They've got teeth. They'll rip your hand apart if you put it too close. And yeah, there's some sick jack fishing to be done, and they're probably the trips that I like the most. Is I'll go with my brother, maybe a couple of boys with some tinnies, and we go hunting up these tiny little like mozzie infested creeks and midges, and it's pretty nasty. But you get onto some psycho fishing, that's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So I was checking out some of your videos just in sort of preparation. You were at one of my favourite places on the planet. I grew up going there a lot as a kid, Fraser Island.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. But I thought my old man was anal.
Oh, yeah.
Getting sand out of his car. You've taken it to the next level, lifted it up. That was a good video basically showing how much sand comes out of your car once you've done one of those trips. Like I go to a Toyota guy down here at Burley, and he reckons I'm pretty good. But he always has to drop the bash plate out for me and gets rid of the last bit of sand out of there. And
it's kind of scary. Did you do the underbody wash as you come off Fraser and that?
I do it at Noosa North Shore there. I do the underbody wash, and then I usually spend multiple weekends, and I literally just feed the hose into the chassis rail and let it run. Actually, I met a guy once made a good little invention. He had like a little hose adapter that was a magnet. So he basically just clicked his hose on it and clicked it over the top of a chassis hole and just left it there, let it go. So you do the sprinkler. I usually do multiple weekends, and then I still take it in, and he takes the bash plate off. All the sand drops out of it.
Yeah. There were kilos of sand that came out of it.
Yeah.
Like we winched it up. I copped some flack on it, but we've been doing it for years, and my brother's worked in construction for 20-something years. But you still got to be pretty careful, I suppose. But we winched it up, drained it out. There were buckets of sand.
If you had access to, some other, obviously don't try that at home, but if you've got it, you cannot beat getting in under there and hosing it out.
Yeah, draining it out.
I usually try and put it on a bit of an angle or something. And
just up on blocks is enough for the most part. But yeah, that's fun, mate. That's fun. Fraser Island.
Favourite place. How long ago were you there?
We go there every year over Christmas, couple of weeks.
So we were there in November, and the Nagala rocks had basically been ripped to pieces. It was completely different. Yeah. So we didn't actually get through. A couple of the boys had some car problems. So we've just literally come through the little rocky bit with all the water in it and pulled straight down onto the beach. And you could never do that before. So it was pretty cool. But does it worry up there? There's been a few dingo attacks and whatnot. But
it does, man.
We've been going there since we were kids. I've always sort of treated it, that's their place. I'd hate to see that they people stop going there, or they stop people from going there because we're ruining it. What do you reckon? Is it ever going to get to that point?
Well, it was scary for us the last time. I got a 2 and a 4-year-old. Yeah. You're young ones too.
Yeah, same.
The last time we were up there, they were more friendly, maybe aggressive. Just running along behind your truck, run out in front of the truck, coming up to you when you stop. We stayed in a house a couple of times. I went down and walk out in the morning, and there's one just in the foyer there, like literally on the tiles. They're very comfy. And I think there's been some culling or something's happened out there where the territorial nature of those dingoes, they're not sure who owns the territory. When we were up there over Christmas, mate, they were everywhere. It was nuts.
Well, people, locals up there will tell you, once they took the horses off the island, you took away all the food, and then they're basically reliant on scraps and people, and which is sad because the horses didn't really belong there either. But they took a lot that food source away. We stayed at Yidney Rocks in November, and I'd be fishing there with the bucket of eugeries behind me, and the every afternoon just on sunset, 3'd come down and have a look.
It's funny.
It was the most spooked I'd ever been, actually, because I was sort of standing there around, and I'd 3 of them coming down, and they sort of didn't worry me when I started walking. I didn't worry them when I started walking towards them. So but I've always thought they were a bit more skittish than that, but they're real relaxed.
Yeah, I've had them follow me on a run. It's a bit eerie. Shit. And my mate was coming out of the water one night. They were camping.
Yep.
he'd sort of gone down for a swim just on dark, which I wouldn't do because the sharks over
Yeah,
there are
Jesus.
mad anyway. But he's coming out and there's 4 of them lined him up and wouldn't let him go past, and he's just standing in the water screaming to his mates to come down and grab him, help him out.
I hope they never stop people going there. Obviously, that at some point I'd say they'll start limiting it, or it'll get more expensive or something. But I went there for like my whole childhood, and we saw the Eastern Beach.
Yeah.
And every now and then, as a treat, we'd go to Lake Mackenzie. But it was basically get up 6 o'clock in the morning if you wanted to go fishing. You had to be in the truck. You'd fish all morning, come home. Tailor season, so we'd clean them all. You'd laze around during the day, and then you'd be back out fishing all night. And that was school holidays in September for forever. But
good childhood memories to have.
It is awesome.
Like
It is awesome. I hope. But as we get older, I've started looking around a bit, and there's some pretty cool spots on that island.
Yeah, mate, there's great spots right from. Even if you're not keen on Fraser, like Fraser's a special place, but there's a lot of spots down northern New South Wales. It's just stunning, eh? And it's 4 hours or so within reach, and beautiful little campgrounds there, a lot quieter.
Yeah.
Fraser gets super busy now.
It's actually something I've only just started sort of noticing is that Northern Rivers, Northern New South Wales is so good it should be Queensland. I reckon they could shift the border just down to Coffs Harbour there somewhere.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Never going to happen.
I love the
Not on my watch.
I love the drive a lot more. I've done the Gold Coast to Gympie all too many times. I sort of don't really want to do it ever again. But when you leave the Gold Coast and head south, it's just magic. So barely any traffic. That run down to Ballina is pretty good now, and that'll get even better. But
some of our best footballers at school come from down that area too. Lismore.
That's in Queensland. That's in Queensland.
I know. It's hard to cop.
So, mate, back to your website, the Lure Book. What's that just all about? Reviews, videos for those that haven't been on?
Yeah, so I put it together initially. There was I was just trying to help people get their head around how to catch fish on lures a little easier, because a lot of people, like you, Matty, have they just struggle to find their feet. You walk into a tackle store, there's a wall full of thousands of lures, and you don't know where to start. So I just started sharing some videos on how I like to use the ones that I catch fish on, and it's just kept going from there. And over the last probably 5 years, I've produced a couple of DVDs that go into a lot more detail to help people catch on to probably that experience that might hook a kid for life, or if we're talking about that ultimate jack fishing experience, whether it's going away on an adventure with your mates or having it all unfold on your back doorstep in a canal somewhere on the Gold Coast. I tried to capture that and pull that together. Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun just to pull videos together. And initially, I was just trying to pull stuff together to share with my grandfather. And then my brother Benny was like, "Johnny, you gotta start sharing some of this." When Facebook came around and YouTube started, so it's been fun since then. And it sort of pushes you to keep going and keep that obsession going. And sharing it with people.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people would have your experience, Matt, where they grab a handful of lures, and it's one thing to have the lure, but it's the most important thing is one of the things you said is where do you fish it? Yeah. And then how do you fish it? Yeah. And there's multiple different ways. You get lures, and I saw some of your footage, and you obviously mentioned a few techniques, which you obviously go into detail in the video, and there's some things that I had never seen before. Even like I think you said, there's surface fishing for the flathead. Brilliant. And the way the types of lures you're using for the jacks, and you're doing that sort of skip cast and getting it up in, and getting
it in under trees.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's these little tips that, and I think obviously I'd love to watch the videos in more detail, because they're those little differences between someone that catches maybe no fish, one fish, or that mate that you've got that catches a shitload of fish. Yeah. And they're just doing things a little bit different, a little bit better. It's that just to get their catch rate up. It's brilliant.
Yeah, so maybe something like I could share with you I wanted to give you a little bit of a broader look at how you could get onto some fish before you even get into your lures. So if you got your kids and you want to go catch some fish on the coast, one of the big mistakes, and like I said, there's the mistake of throwing straight out, but one of the big mistakes is, and I did this when I tried to get my missus into fishing when we first got together. I took a jack fishing, and it's really hard going to try and get one fish. But with my kids, I got it right, and they love it. I took them down. I've got the rod here. Hang on. I took my kids down fishing, and this thing's like an old broken rod that Can you see the end of that? I've just got a bit of thong stuck on the end of that because they drag it along. They try and like wreck the side of my car with it and poke each other in the eye with it. But that's just an old bucket of rod and reel, but with a tiny little hook on the end.
That looks nicer than my best rod.
Can you see that tiny little hook, Matty?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If you start like that for a dad or a mum that's taking their kids fishing, and you just need a bit of bread onto that and take the bread down and throw it in the water and then throw your bread on the hook in behind it. That's probably the easiest way to start getting onto some fish and have some fun with the kids.
Who's going to swallow that?
Well, the
hook?
kids don't know. I mean, I'll never forget the most excited I've ever seen my daughters when she, reeled in a stingray.
Yeah.
That'd be something, you'd sit there and you'd be like, oh my God. But, or, watching my son reeling a dogfish and thinking he's bringing a tuna in.
Yeah.
They don't know. To them, it's just winding a fish in. And,
Yeah.
that it's all about the experience. They're not fussed about whether they've, got a jack or whether they've got a Jew or whether they've got a cod. They're just, excited to have a fish on the end. And you're right. I suppose you could make the mistake of thinking, I've got to get them on it. They're going to want a Jew. You sit them out there in the cold, freezing their ass off.
Mate, they lose it, my little kids. They love it when they're out there just messing around with that.
Yeah,
so
just catching fish.
That's one of the first things, mate. If you're going out with your kids who want to catch fish, and you can do it with as simple as doing it with bread in these lakes out the back here.
How many casts do you reckon go into a DVD?
Oh, it's just, yeah. There'd be hundreds, mate. It's probably the way I like to fish when I go out is casting and retrieving the lures.
Yeah.
So whether you're on a boat, in a kayak, or walking banks, most of the time I'm on a boat or in my kayak. There'd probably be 100 casts in between each of the fish at least that go into some of those. But what you can do with a couple of tricks, right? And I can share with you some of the things that are trending and working for me now for these bigger fish. If you're into your fishing and you want to go out and try and catch something like you might see on the front cover of that big flathead there or that big mangrove jack that are in the top two there, Matty. Yep. If you wanted to capture something like that, like they get around in the canals here.
That's a monster.
And there's giant flathead that get around, the Gold Coast Broadwater, like I said, north of Wavebreak. Tweed River's underrated massively, and then places like Coomba Creek have a lot of good flathead in them. If you go out and fish early morning and with a little bit of stealth, say you leave the kids at home for a morning if they're going to go throwing rocks around and carry on. If you want to get after one of these giants, I go out early morning and throw bigger lures around and near areas where there's good sand flats like you've seen, with yabby holes and things like that. Early morning, big baits like these. That you're trying to imitate a big mullet, man, or a big whiting, right? So something like that. A lot of people that get into their lure fishing will go a little bit smaller to start, which is okay. But you can get onto some of those giants, and they're the fish of a lifetime. And they're there. There's a lot of them around the Gold Coast, and there's not a lot of people fishing with, bigger lures like that for big flathead or even mangrove jack, and there's even barramundi down here now.
So that goes with you want to catch a big fish, you need a big bait.
Yeah, to an extent. That's what I've found with the last couple of seasons, chasing these fish, these big flatties. But then I sort of, I could offset that with that little prawn I showed you.
Yeah.
Or there's a lure called a Xeric Tango shad, which if someone's in a boat or a kayak, there you go. I've just caught something.
That's yours now.
Anything stuck to the table at the end of the night. Yeah.
Yeah, there's small lures that will consistently get you numbers if you're on a boat.
Yeah, cool.
And that's probably one of the best ways to go is to troll around with a small, it's called a Tango shad, and chase flathead this time of year. So it's winter time, good flathead. Springtime, good flathead fishing on the coast, and then coming into summer, mangrove jack are around. And
we usually try and roll a swag out somewhere up there on the Broadway, up near the old bedroom somewhere. It's usually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Problem is we usually drink too much and never get out on the water early, and then get out there at about lunchtime.
You use a lot of plastics, I saw too.
Yeah, yep. So
with like the weedless, which is I think one of the things you talk about is getting it obviously deep into the structure. So those ones with the big trebles on them.
I've never seen the hook like that.
Yeah, it's naughty
Big
bit of
worm
kit,
hooks,
mate. That keeps all the weed off. It just, sometimes you go out and you get frustrating experiences, and they're just little things like that, like a weedless hook like that.
Yep.
Will change your experience and make it a lot more fun to go and throw in under overhanging trees and things up the back of creeks, and that experience for a kayaker or someone in a boat up the back of like Nerang River or Talabudra, Currumbin Creek. There's some great little honey holes up in there. We can catch plenty of fish. Yeah,
cool. You ever caught a fish, Dylan?
It's been a while. I did grow up on the Murray.
Did you?
Oh,
Yeah.
He caught
Did a bit
crabs once.
Yeah. Never got rid of them.
That's a different podcast.
I noticed on one of the videos I saw today, you got the GoPro on your shirt. Is that a regular?
yeah.
Pretty much every time you're out now.
I film most times or nearly every time I go out now because you don't
know what you're going to.
Yeah, there's always that element of maybe not luck, but just that chance. You don't know what's gonna happen. That's part of the experience. I'm usually always recording, and there's a lot of young kids getting into it as well, which is I see other blokes out there doing it now, filming, and for the most part, if it's for yourself, which is the way it started off for me, to share with my granddad, it's great to have that, and so I just record with the GoPro, and you sort of capture everything you got. Then you never forget those trips away with the boys. That's how it sort of kicked off when I chased Mangrove Jack with the fellas.
Yeah, righto.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's good.
All right.
So the website for those that want to go and check it out, My Lure Box.
mylurebox.com.au, but on YouTube is where all the content sits, and that takes people through how to use some of the stuff and how to tactics videos on catching flathead, brim.
And then obviously the DVDs go into a little more detail.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, those DVDs are sort of an hour and a half long of specifics on how to kayak fish the Gold Coast, how to go on an adventure.
Perfect.
yeah. So
if you're definitely interested, I mean, their videos on techniques and obviously locations in and around the Gold Coast, which is valuable.
We're actually giving away the DVDs. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. So
did I win?
No, we ran a bit of a competition. So we just need to make sure John's going to pick a winner. Just make sure it was before 4:30 this afternoon, and it was on the main page.
Yeah. We got the bloke here, Andrew Saunders.
Well, congratulations,
Well done, mate.
Andrew Saunders.
Well done.
Box set.
You've won the box set. If you can't catch a fish after watching those, give it away. Yeah. If you want to send us a direct message, mate, hopefully you live in Australia, we'll send those DVDs out to you. Before we wrap it up, though, I've got 3 questions for you that we ask all our special guests.
Yep.
It's a bit of a rapid fire, so first thing that comes to mind.
Yep.
Favourite destination anywhere in the world for a ginger beer?
To be the Baffle Creek Tavern.
Baffle Creek Tavern.
Yeah, so it's really remote. It gets locked off when there's floods around.
Yep.
But it's a great fishing destination, and it overhangs the water, so you can sit there and you eat a couple of chips yourself, throw a couple over the side, and the fish just go mental for it. It's a good little destination. It has flooded a couple of times though.
Whereabouts is it?
So it's about an hour or an hour and a half north of Bundy. And there's some great spots for fishing up around Bundaberg.
I'll have to put that on the
But that's one that overhangs the water. Yeah.
Baffle Creek. I'm going to put that on the list. Right, our next one. Favourite athlete of all time?
I grew up with Michael Jordan on the telly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
Saturday mornings?
Yeah, on 10.
Yeah.
With, I forget it, Steve Woods, I forget. But
yeah, I know.
Who was it?
Bill Woods.
Bill Woods.
He's got the show on Fox now, Bill and
He's
Boz.
still going.
Yeah, mate.
Yeah,
Bill
Jordan, 100%.
Freak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard you had him a couple of times. Yeah.
Well, greatness is greatness, isn't it?
It's hard to go past.
I'm still waiting for someone to say Dylan, but
Hasn't come up yet, has it?
last one. It's a bit of a cliche, but I love it, and I've always wanted a show where I could ask someone this question. So, 4 people from history over for a barbecue. Anyone from history, alive or dead? Who's coming, and what are you cooking?
Oh, okay. I'm a shocking cook, mate. So it's
You can just catch a fish
Pizza.
for someone else.
It's gonna be a dirty old flathead on the barbecue in butter with lemon.
Perfect.
Cool.
But I'd like to get a Gold Coast. I reckon Mick Fanning would be a really interesting bloke to talk to.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, he's had plenty to deal with, and the pressure he's copped, especially when he's at an event. I've seen photos of those hundreds of people around him with their phone, and he's sitting there trying to prep for an event, and he's going out in big surf. I don't know. I'd love to talk to him about some of that. Malcolm Douglas. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Yep. we lost him, but he's probably the great with all the YouTube and social media around adventure now. I still don't think anyone comes close to him.
What was it? He was like before? He was like Russell Coit, sort of taking the piss out of Malcolm Douglas.
Yeah, Malcolm Douglas.
What was Malcolm Douglas' show? Was it?
It was all about fishing and adventuring the top end with his dog, and he had like an animal park up in Broome, I think.
Yeah.
And he was just rough as mate.
Before Steve Irwin, before any of those guys, he was just living it real.
Yeah, so it'd be him. I saw a great podcast on Bob Lazar, which that'll get you going for if you're a conspiracy.
Well, I thought we were about to wrap this pod up, but you just had to
open it up.
I got to go.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's the doco that Matt shot through the other day to ask you to watch.
That's required.
Yeah, I didn't watch
that's
it.
required listening.
I
Dylan.
did watch that. I did watch it, and I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
Did you listen to it on Joe or another one?
Yeah. That and there's.
Did you watch the
some
documentary
video.
on
Yeah, I saw that
Netflix?
same day,
So-
mate.
so-
3.5 hours.
Give us your fourth, and then we're coming back to Bob Lazar.
And then the fourth is another bloke I've seen talking on mushrooms, Paul Stamets, who's he's into he's another bloke you want to watch and listen
righto.
to him. He's sort of got a
What'd you say?
different
He's
take on the
talking
world.
on mushrooms.
Yeah, like there's talk of like legalizing these drugs in the States, right?
Yeah.
And mushrooms is one where they're trying to push it in some of the states, some of the states over there. And this bloke Paul Stamets, he walks around in Oregon picking mushrooms and like doing tests on them, and then he tries them in teas and that. He's had crazy experiences and he shares that.
So maybe it can be one of the next school programs that we
Yeah.
along with the sport. We can do it out at Nimbin.
Me and my brother used to have a lot of heated battles over extracurricular, all types, extracurricular substances, I guess you'd say. I've certainly changed my opinion after listening to a lot of these guys talk on some stuff. Maybe not so much some of the harder things that you can get into, but the argument on legalising marijuana and mushrooms, I'm not too sure of it.
Yeah, I'm not like I've never done any of that stuff, but listening to these guys talk on it is just it's interesting to me, man. As a complete rookie, it's pretty interesting.
Right, coming back to Bob Lazar.
Yeah,
That's how Trump wins the next election, right? So for those that haven't watched it, this Bob Lazar basically worked at, according to him, a subsection of Area 51 called S4 back in the late 80s, reverse engineering a power source that could create gravity, basically. A lot of the stuff that he got shot down for back then has come out and since been proven true. This is Trump. He's going to come out a week before the next election. It's all real. UFOs, folks. I'll release it all. It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge. We're not sharing it with China. No China.
Very good, Matty. Just love being there.
So that's it. That's the hook. He's going to go, you got to vote for me. And I'll tell you all about I'll tell you all about the flying saucers.
Me and Bobby.
But that, yes.
I wasn't sold. It was interesting.
You are a skeptic,
Yeah,
though,
it's,
Timmy.
it's a hard sell on me, but
Where do they come from then?
where did what come from?
The flying saucers that he was working on.
We haven't seen them. He didn't actually bring them out on there. He just spoke about them.
yeah.
It seems
my
very
missus,
vague on
she's
the.
like, "Turn this crap off."
I couldn't
man."
even get
It was
this
it
into
was was definitely interesting, and there was some stuff in there that kind of made you look twice. The things, like you said, that he's spoken about. But I mean,
I think
one of the things he was quoting, and I'll give you an example. One of them was gravitational waves, and they're like, "Oh, they've just found gravitational waves." Einstein was talking about gravitational waves.
He was.
So I mean, it wasn't like he invented gravitational waves. There was things
he
in there
didn't.
that, it's like, well, okay, maybe if you just watch that, obviously documentary with no understanding of physics, you might think, okay, well, gravitational waves, you can run with that.
There's alternate theories there, though, John. There's people. I've listened to another podcast, and it was a dude basically saying that what they were working on was basically stuff that the Russians had come up with, sent to the US to basically, preoccupy them.
Yeah.
So they were trying to work out where these things come from, and it was the Russians.
It is amazing. Wouldn't you love for it to be true? It'd blow your mind.
See,
It's amazing.
Coming back to your question though, at dinner,
Yeah.
right? Whether you agree with it or not, these blokes go down the rabbit hole. Mick Fanning, like crazy passion with surfing, and surfing is a sport. If I look at we're talking off air about the boys training and their loading for rugby league, right?
Yep.
These boys that are surfing and make it as surfers they're spending, if a professional rugby league player is training, I don't know, 12, 15 hours a week, a lot of the surfers are doing 30, 40 and plus a week. So you got Mick Fanning's gone down the rabbit hole there. You've got Malcolm Douglas has spent a lot of time in the bush, and these other guys, whether you agree with it or not, down a rabbit hole, crazy. Like, just gets you going.
But they're just, that's right.
It's interesting.
I reckon you'd know by the end of that barbecue whether Bob was full of shit or not.
I don't know. He obviously seems genuine.
There is zero proof, Timmy, but as an astronomer, you look out through your telescope on a regular basis, and there's millions and billions of stars.
Yeah.
I'm glad we've gone here.
We're delusional if we think we're alone.
No, so that's not what I suppose. I don't think what he put forward. So I would agree with you, and there's obviously different theories around how much life's out there, and as in obviously there's Earth-like planets. But that doesn't mean life. It's life actually happened like it did here, because we still don't understand how life started. And we can explain evolution. Well, we don't know, but it's another thing, obviously. So he wasn't talking about the fact that do we think life's out there.
No,
he was talking about the fact that he was working on 9 So I agree that yes, it's inconceivable to think with the amount of possibilities of Earth-like planets that we're the only one, but are we visited? I don't know. I haven't seen anything yet, and I'll look up a lot.
So there's a lot of different ways that could go. He basically said they're not of this planet because we don't have the technology now. It could have been any number of things. It could have been just all the German scientists that they ripped out of Nazi Germany after the war had come up with. That was because he said there was 9 different ones, which I thought that's weird. But then I thought, oh well, if he came to Earth from somewhere else, there'd be 9 different planes that'd be around.
Definitely.
But what if they're just from a forgotten civilization? What if they are the evidence of a previous advanced civilization on Earth that was destroyed by like a meteor shower and then buried? Because he actually says, he doesn't say that they flew here. He said that they were dug up. They could be from that previous time. Humans have been in their current form for look at this bloke. He's asleep in the corner.
You both sound like you've been on the mushrooms.
190,000 years in our current state, human beings.
Yeah.
And what's most of our history is in the last 2,000 years, and then you go back to Egypt and maybe another 5. So at worst, 10 to 12,000 years. What do we do for the 178 before that? And how long? So tomorrow there's a solar flare, an asteroid shower, tidal waves. How long do you reckon until the Earth and there's no evidence of this current group?
Proper spin out.
Give it 100 years.
No
what
idea.
would it look like?
Yeah.
No, 1,000 years.
We don't know.
Give it 10,000 years.
Well, they've already, there's already
This
been,
house is not here anymore. I mean, this studio, this is not here anymore.
Yep. We're talking millions and billions of years, and obviously, we've come a long way. I'd say, don't worry about the last 1,000 years. Look how far we've come in the last 20 years, 100 years, and push that out for 1,000, 2,000 years. It's it's mind blowing how far we've come technology wise, and who knows where we're going to end up. Will we end up with technology like he's talking about? I hope so. It's amazing.
So you go real deep on these blokes, and if
It's fun, man.
so, we all grew up in the era of Atari. You have an Atari that evolved into I think we got a Sega next, and then we went from a Sega to a PlayStation, and then the stuff the kids are playing now and the virtual reality and all that sort of stuff. So if you can look at that 30 years of advancement and go from like fake as you can get to indistinguishable, well, what's another 30 years? And if you can admit to yourself, Dylan, that is there ever a possibility in time where you cannot distinguish between virtual reality and reality? Do you reckon that's possible?
Probably.
Then what's to say we're not already living in a simulation?
I don't know if Mick Fanning's going to hang around for this conversation. I want him to
We
come.
lost
He's
him.
checked
We
out.
lost him.
It's
All right.
checked out.
On that note, we took a real right turn.
We've currently got 0 listeners left.
They never listen this long anyway, John. We can talk about whatever you want from this point on.
We generally do.
Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. You're welcome here anytime.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for coming.
Bit of fun.
Pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers, bud.
Good on you.
Awesome.
Thanks, mate.